This is The Express with Gary Allen, your 360-degree view of the world. Now, here's your host, Gary Allen.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of The Express. Gary Allen with you. We've got a very good show tonight. I have one of my dear friends on to talk about his latest book, Get a Kick Out of Life. We'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. I hope everybody's had a wonderful time since the last time we spoke. It was a fantastic weekend for me. We'll get into that in just a second with Tommy because I think he'll agree. My Hurricanes finally beat the Florida State Seminoles. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that when that happens. And also my Colts actually won a game. I don't know how, but they actually won a game. I want to remind everybody, if you go on Facebook to Gary Allen, A-L-A-N, you can catch me there and friend me and stay in touch with what's going on with this show. If you go to youtube.com, Gary Allen, The Express, you can listen to some of my past shows. I also have a lot of new podcast places that I'm placing the shows now, and there'll be some other social media places in which the show will also be. You'll find out about the show that way. On Thursday night, this program will repeat itself at 7 o'clock on diversitybroadcastnetwork.com, progressivevoices.com on their demand channel. If you have one of their apps, you're able to get in there. And, of course, if you're on TuneIn with TMV Cafe, you can always go and listen to one of my past shows there. So I'm very excited about that. As the weeks go on, we're just now implementing a lot of new podcast websites, where you'll be able to hear my shows. You'll be able to get more information on social media as I'm expanding out as we keep moving forward with this show. And without all of you, it wouldn't be possible. And Randy, I want to thank you out there. I know you listen in, and I hope you are tonight. My guest tonight is a gentleman who has been on this program before. He came to us about a year ago with a book called Fit to Lead. And he's back now with his new book, Get a Kick Out of Life, Expect the Best of Your Body, Mind, and Soul at Any Age. And that's Tommy Thompson. He also co-wrote this with Christopher B. Peake, a Ph.D., and Alice Sullivan. This is a fantastic book. But let me tell you a little bit about Tom. Tommy has a master's in science degree in kinesiology from the University of Northern Texas. Certification of Advanced Studies in Organizational Leadership from Regent University, a Doctor of Strategy Leadership degree from Regent University, as well as a Master's of Arts degree in teaching from Austin College. But the thing that really impressed me the most about Tom was the fact that at age 61, he set an NCAA record for kicking an extra point, making him the oldest a PAT kicker in the history of college football. And that to me is remarkable because at the age of 61, I could barely get out of bed without having to first sit there for a couple minutes without falling down. Now, this book that we're going to talk about tonight with Tom is called Get a Kick Out of Life. And here's a little excerpt from it. Tom says, "It's never too late to live your best life." Thompson declares, "Get a kick out of life. You can harness the power of your body, mind, and spirit to live the most fulfilling life yet." So I'm excited about that. And Tom, I'm excited to have you back. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to join us here on The Express.
Hey, Gary, it's great being with you again. I always look forward to you and I getting a chance to visit.
Absolutely. And as I said at the top of the program, which I know you would appreciate, finally, my Hurricanes got past the jinx of Florida State.
Well, you're right, they did. But as I remember having gone to high school in Florida, that Florida State-Miami game was always a tough game, always a hard-fought game. It probably is one of the best college football rivalries in America. And it's always nice to have it go back your way after it's gone the other way for so long.
Well, you know, for so many years, and then we're going to get on with the book. For so many years, I discussed on my show last night at the radio station that game determined who would be the national champions. For so many years, for about a good 12 years, that game determined the national championship, even if it was at the beginning of the season, because these were two powerhouse football teams. Now, Miami kind of fell to the wayside because of some of the things that they did that some of the players shouldn't have done, and some things that the administration of the school shouldn't have done. But Florida State has always remained basically a power. And this year, finally, maybe we'll make it into the playoffs. Now we're going to either meet Clemson, which will probably kill us, because to me, Tommy, there's only two teams in college football right now, and I'm sorry, Georgia fans and Notre Dame fans, but it's either Alabama or Clemson. Let's be honest, you know.
Well, they're certainly very good, and they've been very good for a while. And anymore, once you get up there, it's tough to stay there.
Yes.
And so if you go past, 1 or 2 years, like Alabama has, for example, you've got something special there. But I've got to say as well, the ebb and flow of players going to different schools can change that in a blink. Miami's got a great coach now, and I think he'll do a good job there for many years to come.
Absolutely. Now, I want to get on the book here, and as I read that little excerpt, you talked about harnessing the power of your body. Let's talk about that briefly, because I have, as you know, my normal questions, and then we'll really get into this book, which, by the way, This is an excellent book. As all your books are, it's easy to read. It's well written. It explains everything you need to do to have a healthy body, healthy mind, and a healthy soul at any age. And what I mean by any age, ladies and gentlemen, Tommy's not kidding you, because Tommy and I are pretty much not far apart in age. At any age, you can do any of this and really get the most out of your life at whatever age you are, 34, 44, 54, 64, whatever. It's great. How does someone harness the power of their body?
Well, the first thing that many of us don't have, because the newspapers and the commercials all tell us that we can look like we did when we were in our 20s, or someone that's round can look like someone that's tall and skinny. Mm-hmm. And so we're all always set up to try to look like someone else.
Yeah.
And that's not going to work, and I'll tell you why. I'll use the metaphor of the carrot, the apple, and the pear. And those are the three body types, the ectomorph, endomorph, and mesomorph. And just to be technical with those three types. And what we have to do first, Gary, is we have to accept the body God gave us. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm never going to look tall and skinny. I don't care what I do or how I try. I'll give a good example. For those of you all that are familiar with bodybuilders, someone like Ronnie Coleman, I can do his workout from now until Jesus comes back, and I'll never look like him for a lot of different reasons, the genetics, the age, all sorts of things. And how my body responds to exercise is going to be different from anybody else. So here's what we have to do. We have to have a realistic notion about fitness. Well, the original Greek word for fit is useful in the first place. And so it's not about how we look at all. It's how useful can we be by using exercise. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us think that we have to go live in a gym or have a birdseed diet or something like that. And we spoke about that in the book that we did, Fit to Lead. And it really speaks to the sense that, it's okay if you want to eat Mexican food. You just can't have it every night for the week. Mm-hmm. But if you try to eat right 4 or 5 times a week, you can have the Mexican food once, or you can have the brownie or the cheeseburger. I mean, we're not supposed to be in the bondage of what diets can bring us. We're supposed to enjoy our life, actually. Yeah. And the other thing about exercise, the main thing that we like to get across to people is, Gary, your muscles, my muscles, and everybody's muscles that are out there listening to this show, they're about 72% water when we're born and when we die. Mm-hmm. That won't change. But what does change are joint implications. In other words, the soft tissue, the tendons, the ligaments. So the goal of any strength and conditioning work needs to be to maintain the integrity of the joint.
Mm-hmm.
And so that allows, too, for some mobility that we can have as we age. And oftentimes we don't really, when you're young and you feel good, you don't think about that sort of thing. But the other thing about how do you get the most out of your body is you don't make large changes. You make small incremental changes on a regular basis. And I'm not talking about changing the plates on the barbell rack. I'm talking about going from not exercising regularly to exercising regularly. Mm-hmm. And we have what we call the 10-minute method for folks that haven't been exercising. And what that refers to is that most of us would agree that we could do just about anything for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we suggest to people that are sedentary, and that's someone that hasn't exercised for 3 months, is that they go to a fitness center or a community center or wherever there's fitness equipment, get on some piece of cardiovascular equipment. Don't worry about how hard, how long, how fast, anything. Just get on it for 10 minutes. When you're done, get off and go home and go about your life. Do that every day for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, begin to add a minute until you're up to 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. Now, here's what I want to say about all that. It's not about the outcome that protocol has given. It's about we have changed someone's behavior from not exercising to exercising. And that's huge. And once you get past that, you're able to add and increase the modalities that you're using to get yourself more fit. Now, here's the big, again, addressing that big fib. You can look like you did when you were in your 20s. The truth is that if you exercise regularly, you can look, act, feel, and function 10 years younger than your chronological age. Well, I'm 69, and I probably look and I function as though I were 59 years old.
Yes, you look very, very young.
And so that's what I'm saying. I haven't tried to do anything except the fact that, I'm a pear. I'm not going to be a carrot. Yeah. And so I'm not trying to do anything that is going to cause me to be frustrated to where I quit. I mean, that's one way you're going to quit is that you're not seeing any progress.
Do you think that people, for the most part, that's the reason, the New Year's resolution type of thing, and we're going to get into this a little bit later on, but since you've kind of hit on it at this point, every New Year's, everybody makes a lot of these phony baloney resolutions that last for about 2 to 3 days. The biggest one, of course, is I'm going to go and join a gym, and the gyms love that. You join and you never show up, and they have your money. Do you think probably one of the reasons why people stop exercising and working out is for the very same reason that you just said? You're not seeing any instant results, and that's a product of the society we live in because everything is push button, instant results, instant answers, instant this, and the body doesn't work like a computer.
No, it doesn't, and that's probably one variable as to why that occurs. The other thing is you'll know that, or you need to know that any kind of research on physical activity, the shortest time you can have a study is 8 weeks. And that's the soonest you can begin to measure any kind of result from anything you've done. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting about that 8-week period is that's about the time people stop. Is that they'll I'm going to change the way I live. I'm going to change my lifestyle. I'm going to do this. And here's the thing that happens, Gary, that I think is foundational, and kind of let's step back a bit and look at this. How many people do you know that want to change their life?
Oh, God. So many, including me, right? Sometimes. Yeah, including me sometimes.
Well,
yeah.
Well, here's the thing, but they're not willing to change how they think. You got to do that first. So you got to think differently about exercise. And a lot of people get the idea that it's just about, again, how we look, and it's not. It's the goal truly is quality of life. Your quality of life will be better, and that's why you go. And I asked this question to when I had MBA students. I would say, why do you go to work? And they'll say, well, gosh, we got responsibilities and we got to pay bills. And I say, well, so why do you go to work? And then they'll say, for the money. And I'll say, well, you're halfway there, because if you stopped going to work, the money would stop and the quality of life would drop.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the same thing with exercise. That's why you should exercise. You're not exercising for how you look, how, what you might think that, you're trying to change on yourself. But what ends up happening is that your quality of life gets terrible. And usually we don't really see it manifest. If we haven't exercised, let's say for our entire lifetime, by the time we start getting into our 40s and 50s, we start having, the wheels start wobbling. And some other things, begin to happen, and it gets more into medical issues that we could have stopped. But see, you can't, if you tell somebody that when they're young and they feel good, they don't really feel the need to make the change.
Yeah, they think that, as we all did, that you're going to be young forever. We're talking to Tommy Thompson, the author of Get a Kick Out of Life. Expect the best out of your body, mind, and soul at any age. Also, Christopher P. Neck, a PhD, also co-authored along with Alice Sullivan. And this is a fantastic book. I got it. I've been reading it, as I do with all your books that I get. And I really do. And I got to tell you something, Tommy. The one thing that rang through, the two things that I got from the book when I first started it, as I do with all your books, is you must have discipline, and you can't worry about what somebody else is or isn't doing. You have to stay on your own course for whether we're talking about the mind, the body, or your soul. If you let other people distract you from what you're doing, you'll never achieve the goals, which we will get to, which is a major part of what we're going to talk about, is goals. You can't be distracted. You have to keep that single-mindedness moving forward, that discipline that it takes in order to be successful.
Well, that's where vision comes into play, and that's really a sidebar to everything. Is that you have in your mind, you have the outcome that you're looking to get to, and you've got to maintain that vision through the good, the bad, and the ugly. And because it's going to modulate, life is going to come at all of us different. And if we think that, well, because I've decided to do this, it's going to be easy. No, what I've usually found is if anything is worth doing, it will challenge you to quit at least once. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I wanted to quit my doctoral program, but my wife kept saying, no, you're going to finish. Yeah. And so I, I'm just saying though, that you've got to be challenged to really make that decision. Do I keep going or do I not? And so the vision helps you hang in there, is what I'm getting at. That will sometimes keep you from, quitting something that you ought not have quit.
Yeah, exactly. You're listening to The Express. Tommy Thompson is my guest tonight, the author of Get a Kick Out of Life. And let's get on the goals part of the book. You state in the book that people have a hard time setting goals. And in many cases, they're unrealistic or they're unclear about what they're really looking for. And they talk about a lot of different things, and they might set a goal, but they're not being realistic. And in your book on page 18, you talk about tips for intentionality. Talk about that a little bit, would you please?
Well, sure. You have to be able to define the goal in the sense that if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to develop a system to get that outcome you're looking for. And you've got to be honest with yourself. You've got to be able to look at yourself where you are right now. You can't just keep transposing your mind to that outcome that you're working towards. You've got to be able to start at the beginning, and that really involves forgiving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you want to be freed up, if you will, to pursue a goal, you got to just say, you know, I can't tell you how many clients I've had that have started and stopped exercise programs, and one of the ways that I got them to keep going and eventually get it to work is I told them, look, for every time, and this isn't a physiological strategy, this is a psychological strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell them, for every time you exercise, you are taking care of 3 times you didn't. Now, how many people do you know that once they get to exercise, they start thinking, oh gosh, I wish I'd have done this 3 months ago, and they try to, pile on the work as opposed to just staying where they are and building from that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyway, before you can really get any kind of specific goal, you've got to decide what's important and what are you trying to accomplish. And then, these goals need to be yours. And when I say that, when I was in my own goal discovery period, if you will, people around me used to say all the time, just set goals. Well, all of a sudden I realized that some of these set goals that I was setting, they had nothing to do with my core values. Yeah. And I was finding if I did accomplish them, I wasn't fulfilled long term. I just had a sense of achievement.
Right.
So that made me realize that if I want to have a long-term sense of fulfillment with goals, I need to set them to core values. And here's another big deal, Gary. This is huge. We're always talking about setting goals.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where I think the growth comes in and how the goal gets achieved. I don't want to say more easily, but in a sense that you're able to process in a much better way. And what that is, we have to be able to set behavioral limitations with the goals that we set. For example, an Olympic athlete, it's not so much that they're setting goals to do that, but how have they modified their life to be able to achieve those goals?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with someone that says, well, I want to go join the military. Well, they join the military, and they're a basic recruit. Well, there's a mission that a basic recruit will have, and their physical protocol is much less than, say, an Army Ranger or a Navy SEAL.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And so the behavioral limitations that are set are crucial. You could set huge, mighty goals, and those are great. And oftentimes young people today, it seems, they validate themselves on the goals that they've set, not the goals they've achieved.
Yes. And there is yes.
I mean, I was just going to say, I can't tell you how many young men I run across that say, I'm going to go become a Navy SEAL. And I run into them 2 years later, and they never even joined the Navy.
Yeah.
So, I'm saying, though, that there has to be some sort of I won't do this to be able to do that. And that's where the self-setting of the goals and the self-sacrifice, if you will, that really comes into play, and that's crucial. And that's wouldn't
it be honest to say, Tommy, that it's important to be realistic and honest with yourself about goals that you're going to set for yourself? And if it's something you truly in your heart want to do, you will do it. But if you're just talking the storyline, you probably will never go off and achieve those goals. And one of those things is, in your book, you talk about bucket lists. Throw those out.
Right.
That's just Blarney Stone stuff for, I want to climb this before I die.
Yeah. Well, it also infers that it's about just you. And what we suggest in Get a Kick Out of Life is that you set what we call quality of life goals.
Mm-hmm.
And those are goals that include a lot of people, and it doesn't end with the particular event. In other words, and I'll use the example, if you don't mind, of when I started the journey to go back to college, make a football team as a kicker. Well, it wasn't just to, kick the ball through the goalposts. It was, I was trying to demonstrate to other people that if you maintain fitness throughout your life, when you get older, you might be able to do that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, initially doing that was to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, along the way, I mean, I've gotten friends. I'm still there coaching kickers for the school. I'm a professor in the leadership department there,
mm-hmm.
and my co-authors, we wrote a book together. I've got an agent and all this stuff. I mean, I've developed relationships beyond just the kicking event, is what I'm getting at.
I got news for you on a sidebar here thing.
Mm-hmm.
With some of the kickers that I've recently seen in the NFL, you might have a job in the NFL too, Tom.
Well, it may be coaching.
No. I mean, some of these kickers are bad.
Well, here's the truth. We're talking about being realistic,
mm-hmm.
and I could not kick very high, and I couldn't kick very far, but I could kick straight. Yeah. And that's all I needed to do for an extra point. But also, I didn't kick soccer style. I kicked the old way.
That's true.
But anyway, my point is the realistic part
mm-hmm.
doesn't so much have to do with the outcome, but be realistic about the system you put in place. And I'll give another example about going back to school and trying to do all that. Well, I set 3 goals. 1 was to help the team.
Mm-hmm.
2 was to, be a part of the team, if you will. And then 3, I had a personal goal of earning a letter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when the NCAA first denied my waiver, people would have said, well, okay, I can't play, and it's over. And I went to my wife and said, they said no. And she said, well, is that the very, very end? And I said, no, there's an appeal. I said, well, go through it. She said, go through it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the meantime, while that process was going on, the school decided to go ahead and let that sort of play out. And so the coach at the time, he said, well, we're going to make you a coach. So I made the team.
Mm-hmm.
I was helping them, do well, and that would count as a year toward my letter. Oh, and as it turned out, I mean, see, what I'm getting at is if the system that you set up is realistic, the outcome takes care of itself. And that's
exactly.
the point of that. And if we just look at the outcome, it's like when I teach my martial arts students, mm-hmm. I'm always telling them, don't look at either side of you and don't look at belt color, just show up to class. And if you do, the process will take you there.
Absolutely.
And so few people choose to make the goal the process.
Mm-hmm. We're talking to Tommy Thompson, the author of Get a Kick Out of Life, here on the Express. Expect the best of your body, mind, soul at any age. It is a great book. Pick it up. You will learn so much in here about how it can improve your life and improve your way of life and your productivity in life with a healthy mind and body and a soul. Let me ask you, number one, I want to go back to something you were saying about mm-hmm. when you were rejected the first time by the NCAA and they said no. It reminds me of something that I brought up the last time that you and I talked. As you know, at one time I was very close to the Baltimore Colt football team. I'm not mm-hmm. going to get into here as to why. And I remember learning from and about Johnny Unitas, who was one of my heroes growing up as a kid, and I got to know him, somewhat well. And he had a famous saying, if you take no the first time, you'll never get anything done in life.
That's pretty succinct, and it's it's pretty much played itself out in my own life. And so what no generally does is gives you an opportunity to redefine, reassess. And, the thing is if you have something that you believe is worthwhile and is intended to help other people, you have a better chance of overcoming that no.
Isn't that the key of life for a lot of things, Tommy? You really get really great satisfaction out of doing things that might benefit you, yes, because you want to do them. But boy, you get to meet people, you get to help people. And as you go through life, you find that you're helping more and more people with whatever you learned in your journey, because after all, this book is not just something you read, go out and do and accomplish in 6 weeks or 6 months. It's a journey. It's a change of life journey.
Right. And you have to be willing to accept all the different variables that come your way along that journey, because it's all designed for us to become better people, better friends, better employees, all sorts of things. I mean, and I know there's some ugly in life, and I think that I know what that can be like, and what it is to sometimes keep people locked up for many years before they decide to break out. Mm-hmm. And yet the thing that I guess helped me was to realize that what we perceive as failure isn't an outcome. It's a design variable. Mm-hmm. And here's the point. None of us are defined by the success we enjoy. We're defined by the obstacles we overcome. Mm-hmm. It's real easy if, everything's going your way and everybody just goes, well, there's what is there to admire and respect for someone that has things handed to them? And a lot of these, younger generation these days, they're expecting that.
Yes. Everything handed to us, and we don't have to earn anything. And that's where I think the value of respecting things that you have disappears, because you didn't earn it. It was given to you. So you naturally think, well, it's going to be given to me again. It was given to me once. I went through that. I'll be honest with you. When I was a youngster, I didn't understand the value of $1. And my father sent me up to Connecticut along with other relatives in my family. And I picked tobacco in the tobacco sheds in Hartford for $1 a day. Now, the rest of the money was sent to my father back down in Florida, but that's all I got paid at the end of the week was $5. Taxes not taken out. And that's what I had to learn to live on. I was living with an aunt and uncle, but that was it. I got $5 a week for 6 weeks during the summer. And boy, I learned the value of money. I've sort of lost my way a few times, but basically I understand the value of money. One thing before we get into the book even further about the journey, is it important when you first get going and you're setting your goals, whatever they may be, is that you sit down with a pen and paper, or pencil and paper, and map it out so you have a clear picture of where you are and where you would like to be. And also, too, put no restrictions on yourself for time, because life has a tendency to throw curves at you. Oh, I want to get my college degree in 4 years, but it really took them 4.5 to 5 years. Do you need to be realistic in your time frame?
Well, I think the time frame sometimes will adjust itself. And let me put it to you again, if I can use my experience. I wanted to play college football when I was 19.
I remember.
And had I done that, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. And so the timing ended up being best when I was 61 years old. And again, I would have been playing for Tom back then, and now I play to help a lot of other people. And so I think the time frame, oftentimes, we always want things to happen in a hurry. But quite frankly, to me personally, I've come to the place where I look for God's timing in things. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, it's better for me. And so it's allowed me, even at my age now, I'm patient. And it kind of reminds me of the old joke about the the young bull and the old bull, and they're standing up on the hill, and they see a bunch of cows down the valley.
Yeah.
And the young bull says, "Hey, let's run down and get one." And the old bull says, "Nope, let's walk down and get them all."
Yeah.
And that's the point, is that we need to, time is that's gold.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be willing to invest time to get a return on what we did. If we don't take...
Do we use age as a weapon against doing things? In other words, people say, well, I'm in my 60s now, so I'm going to retire. I'm going to go off and play golf instead of doing something else they really want to do.
Well, everybody's different, Gary, and I think the point of the book that we wrote here is that this is not you must do. This is a how-to that people can apply to their own life. Mm-hmm. And so I think, I personally have no plans to ever retire. Mm. And the reason I don't is that but people tease me because they say, golly, all your friends are retired, and you're, quite frankly, I function like a 27-year-old grad student. Mm-hmm. That's, I'm teaching in college now. I mean, heck, I have an 11-year-old son at home. And, I think a lot of the notion of retirement is no different than our notion of fitness. It's what other people have tried to get us to fit into. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, we're all unique. Just like, for example, diets. There's all these millions of diets. Mm. But the truth is, and every one of them tells you they're the one you got to do. But the reality is, everybody's metabolism is different.
Yes, it is.
So your metabolism is going to, whatever diet you get on, your results. That's why if you'll notice in the small print it says results may vary. Well, they vary because everybody's got a different metabolism. Mm-hmm. Well, so everybody has a different purpose in life. And oftentimes we just lose track of the fact that part of our journey is to discover that purpose. Mm-hmm. And it's not there to trick us, and it's not there to be an aha moment. It's there to give us a sense of, life is worth living.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, yes. And if we learned anything in recent incidents with hurricanes and the tragedy in Las Vegas and everything, is that life is definitely worth living. Tommy, we're talking to Tommy Thompson, who is the co-author of Get a Kick Out of Life, Expect the Best of Your Body, Mind, and Soul at Any Age. And Tommy's joining us again here on The Express. Gary Allen with you. Let's talk about something. In Chapter 2, you talk about make yourself a priority. You state that often we become prisoners of our own goals. You don't like deadlines, do you?
No, and we refer to those as finish lines, and what that means is we can adjust whatever it is we're striving for, and remember I said about incremental changes earlier. Mm-hmm. You set those finish lines up to where you're constantly feeling like you're winning. You're always thinking you're winning. Remember what I said about you got to change how you think?
Yes.
Well, you got to set up little strategies that allow you to think like a winner.
But you must be realistic within that too, correct?
Well, yes. However, if you are setting up incremental goals, like let's say, hey, I want to run a marathon. Mm-hmm. Well, and you just decide to train for 3 months and go run one. Well, you've got some good odds that you're going to get hurt and not finish. And then what's the point of that? Mm-hmm. Whereas, I will tell clients, if you're thinking about running and you're not a runner, just start out for a while running a quarter mile and slowly build. Mm-hmm. And then build up. There's a great book on anybody who wants to run a marathon called Galloway's Book on Running. And as Jeff Galloway wrote it, and it tells everybody how to Anybody at any level can run a marathon. But what it also points to are little things along the way you can do, like getting a 5K, finish a 5K, then do a 10K. I mean, get to where you're finishing races, because I will tell you, having run a marathon, I know what it feels like when you get close to the end.
Yeah. For me, I'd be in the hospital for about a month.
Well, I'm saying, but if you even think about it, take it down to a 100-meter dash.
Mm-hmm.
The expression on people's faces is different from at the beginning of the race at the end of the race.
Mm-hmm.
And it's harder at the end of the race than it is at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And that's with everything. Goals will lose their pull the closer you get to them. And that's why that vision piece is important. Because, again, I think you and I have talked about this. How many people do we know that 3 hours or a course away from finishing a college degree?
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. I was 6 credits short and got a job in radio. And back then you didn't need it. You almost still don't need it. But I still feel guilty about it because my own sister ribs me about it. And actually, she's rather sarcastic and mean about it. She says, well, you're not educated. I went to 4 different universities, and yet in her mind, because I don't have the degree, I'm not educated, which is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, life will give us all PhDs after a while. But what I would say to you, though, is, look, you're talking to a guy that didn't ever finish college and went back at 45.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I have 4 college degrees. Well, how did that happen? Well, I had a different view of education later in life.
Yes.
And that's what I would even challenge you that, don't worry about your sister or anybody else, but you might have a different look. These days, you can go back and get a degree online and finish. Because that finish piece is huge, Gary. It's really huge. The more things that we get to finish in our life, the more chances of us finishing the bigger things.
Yes. We're talking to Tommy Thompson. Get a Kick Out of Life is his new book. Expect the best from your body, mind, soul at any age. Tommy, you're on the Express as well, folks, and thank you for tuning in. Where can they find the book?
Amazon.com and local bookstores, and you can go to our website, 91kick.com.
I love the art on the front. I just love it.
Yeah, Suzanne did just a magnificent job. She's done all of our books and
watercolor, I believe. Yeah, it's great.
I think so.
Yeah, it's absolutely great. Let's we're talking about making yourself a priority. You state in here something kind of I think you were talking about, that we get bombarded in our goals at work and home, of which it can become a mental prison yard, right. And we cannot find ourselves out of it, and therefore we push the timelines, our boundaries, and we end up nowhere. We're just confused, and everything gets going. And we also have a habit of taking on gargantuan tasks that eventually we don't do so well at.
Well, there's a mentor in my life that told me something a number of years ago that I took to heart, and it really matters. At least it does to me. We need to undercommit and overperform. In other words, if we have sat down and we have a purpose in our life or a vision or where we have sat down and we know that this is what we want to do for us to be the best person we can be. Well, in that, we suggest in this book is you break those things down into body, mind, and soul. And let's say you have financial goals, and that would fall into the mind aspect of that. Mm-hmm. Well, this particular individual, he's extremely wealthy, and he has people all the time presenting him with opportunities in a whole different array of arenas. And even if he likes the deal, even if he likes the people, even if he likes everything about it, if it doesn't fit in his life mission, he will not do it. Mm. He will say no. Remember when I told you earlier about the behavioral modifications?
Mm-hmm.
The easiest thing for us to do, Gary, is to say yes to ourselves. The hardest thing for us to do is to say no to ourselves and stick to it.
Yes.
That's actually harder than sticking to a new exercise routine. If you can say no to yourself, you will grow in life.
Yes. I have a habit of, I love junk food, fast food. I'm a single guy, and when I'm coming home from the radio station or somewhere, I think nothing of pulling into BK or into McDonald's or something and getting something.
Mm-hmm.
Lately, Tommy, I've been going to Subway and I've been eating a lot healthier.
Good. Well, again, you obviously recalculated or recalibrated how you view what you eat. Now, one of the things that I suggest to people is if they're trying to get in better shape, the first thing to change is the lack of exercise. Mm-hmm. And I actually tell people, go ahead and keep eating what you're eating, but exercise for a year. At the end of the year, that's when you begin to address the nutritional side, because the body will begin to naturally gravitate towards things it should have as opposed to junk food. But see, the other thing is you will have changed a behavior that you can then apply to nutrition. And you can use that template in every area of your life that you've learned how to change from one thing that you're doing to something else and sticking to it.
Yeah.
But then the other piece is a lot of people, they get in the process and it becomes tedium. And they go, well, this isn't what I thought it'd be.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to always be in that place. You got to know that. No matter what you're doing, you're going to be in that place where you're going to have to go back to your original vision and the reasons you're doing it to have an opportunity to finish. I tell people this all the time. There's two variables that will allow for long-term behavioral change. And we've talked about this earlier. You got to change the way you think, and then you have to submit your will to that new way of thinking. And then all that does, Gary, is give you a chance to change. It doesn't guarantee it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking to Tommy Thompson, author of Get a Kick Out of Life, Expect the Best Out of Your Body, Mind, and Soul at Any Age. And you are listening to The Express. I am Gary Allen, and I'm glad you went into nutrition. We've got about 10 minutes left in the program. You say in the book, no to diets.
Yeah.
They're short, but you'll probably fail at. Oh, by the way, before you get into that, I quit drinking when I lived in Las Vegas. I quit drinking soda for a year. I lost 20 pounds. I lost 20 pounds.
There you go.
I mean, I literally lost 20 pounds. Now, I happen to like my Dr. Pepper. I'm sorry. I love my Dr. Pepper. But I quit drinking soda for a year, and I lost 20 pounds. Other friends of mine who've taken that advice lost some weight too. But in your book, on page 59, you discuss no to diets. Short term, okay, but in the long run, you fail at them because you eventually give up and move on to something else, and you gain more weight back from what you lost on a diet than it was worth.
Well, and the reason that happens is, and I don't know why God set it up this way, but we can lose brain cells. But once you make a fat cell, it's there for life. And so what ends up happening is you go on these diets, and if your body is going to process what you eat depending on what its needs are. And so if you're doing a calorie restricted diet, you begin to go into a starvation mode. So all the calories that you take in, they go to fat. And so that creates the fat cells. And so you've lost, actually you lose some muscle mass along the way, which is not good and not healthy. And then after you've lost the weight you want, you kind of slowly creep back into where you were, and you end up not losing 10 to 15% of the weight you lost in the first place. So eventually over time, that's how you get to where you just can't lose any more weight, because the fat cells are there and they're not going away.
Is that why people who I don't know quite how to put this, but people that are not exactly very wealthy or the poor are heavy set, or is that a completely other thing?
Some of that it's a combination of lack of physical activity and nutrition. Yes. There's a couple of things too that are big factors in changing that lifestyle that we talk about, and they're so easy people just ignore them.
Mm-hmm.
And one is you need to hydrate. You need to drink water.
Yes.
Lots of water. I mean, at some point in time, 80% of our population is in some state of dehydration, and dehydration is really debilitating.
Yeah.
The other thing we can do is get rest, sleep. And so we always think that, well, I'll drink water when I'm thirsty and I'll sleep when I'm tired.
No,
it doesn't work that way.
No.
So if you just add those two variables, plus you include physical activity, you would be stunned at your life 12 months from now.
Living out west as I did in Las Vegas, you learn to hydrate constantly. And I remember a story that was told to me, Tommy, about a man who decided to run from one side, the western side, to the eastern side of Death Valley. He picked the widest point. He died halfway across because all he had with him was 3 bottles of water, and he happened to pick one of the hottest days, which was 130 degrees or more. And he just didn't hydrate properly before. He decided to take on the task, and the 3 bottles of water did him no good. He sweat those out faster than you can flush your toilet.
Well, also, if you're going to do an event like that, you need to spend months getting to where you're already hydrated.
Right.
And you know, most of us we just don't think about the hydration piece, but it's huge.
Absolutely.
It's huge.
Let's talk. We got about 5 minutes here to go, and it's been a wonderful joy to have again Tommy Thompson on, the author of Get a Kick Out of Life. Expect the best out of your body, mind, and soul at any age. You can get it on Amazon. You can go to your local bookstore. Please get this. It will help you do the things out of life maybe you've been putting off, and it'll also just help you get where you want to be at any age, whether you're in high school, college, whether you're middle-aged, senior citizen, whatever the case may be. And Tommy always tells it the way it is, and that's what I love about him. You talk about know the facts as far as food is concerned and nutrition. Talk about protein, carbs, and fat.
Okay. Protein is there to rebuild tissue. Carbohydrates are there to give you an energy source. And fat is there. Actually, we need fat. And the fat we need is called essential fat. And that fat is what insulates the internal organs from stress. Not the stress of life, but just, or falling downstairs, but just dealing with the things that we encounter, psychologically or whatever, those kind of things. And we get the idea that if we have low-fat diets, that's good. No, you need about 30% of your caloric intake needs to be fat. And then another 30% could be carbohydrates. But if you're active, 40% then would be protein. Now, if you're not active, you'd flip the carbs and the protein. Mm-hmm. So you'd have 30% protein and 40% carbohydrates. But the thing is, I'm saying that more that you understand why you're ingesting the food you're ingesting, not to count the calories and that sort of thing.
Right.
Because the thing is that, we were talking about the sleep deal. Well, your metabolism's like any person. It only wants to work so many hours a week. Mm-hmm. And how many of us do we know that they get up at a certain time every day, but they go to bed sometimes very late? It spikes and peaks and valleys all across the week. Well, eventually the metabolism just goes, you know what, I give up, I quit, I'm not going to work anymore.
Right.
And we need to do things that enhance the metabolism. And also, when you do that, you're enhancing the immune system, which keeps us healthy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, of course, fats are very important.
Well, they are. I mean, you need to, keep, like as I said, the internal organs insulated, but you don't want to get the bad fats. And but every now and then, it's okay. As like I said, if you like cheeseburgers, it's okay to have one.
Oh, me love them. Me love them. Me love.
Yeah,
me love
no. And the way that we get the thing to reverse is I'll tell clients for the next 30 days, take the cheese off.
Oh, that's hard to do. I won't get a cheeseburger all the time, and I try to stay away from as much bacon as possible. 2 final questions here.
Sure.
How important is breakfast?
Huge, because if the metabolism needs to kick off, and if you wait till noon to kick it off, you're trying to get it to work to process full day's work in 6 hours. And you need to start off early, and all of our metabolism does one thing that is not unique to each of us, and that is around 8 o'clock at night it begins to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to do everything we can to keep it going in a healthy way, so we can process the calories at its most efficient manner. And so if you don't have breakfast, you're cheating yourself.
Yeah.
One of the things I'll tell clients that don't like breakfast, you can always put bananas and bagels in your car driving to work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was ruined as far as eating breakfast on a regular basis thanks to the Air Force, but that's just me. We've been listening to Tommy Thompson here on The Express. Get a kick out of life. Expect the best out of your body, mind, and soul at any age. Go to Amazon, go to your local bookstore, ask for it. If they don't have it, order it. This will change your life. It'll change your perspective on who you are. It'll help you get where you need to be. And Tommy, with just about a minute or so to go, what's the one takeaway that you want people to get from this book?
To know that they still have a lot to offer themselves and others, and that all the limitations that the world wants to put on them can be dealt with in a methodical way to get them to a very good place in their life. And that's what we're all trying to accomplish. That's that pursuit of happiness. This is a how-to. Oftentimes we hear the why-to, but this is a how to do it. Right. And I think that's the most important takeaway.
Tommy, I want to thank you so much. The hour goes by so fast. You're going to be
doesn't it?
After the first of the year. You're going to be on my local show here in Cocoa, and I look forward to that very, very much. Give my best to your family. I will talk to you in just maybe about 15, 20 minutes from now. But thank you so much for joining us here on The Express. Tommy Thompson, the author of Get a Kick Out of Life, Expect the Best Out of Your Body, Mind, and Soul at Any Age. Get it, read it. You will enjoy it. It's a good read. It's an easy read, and it makes a great gift for someone who you think could use a little bit of help in getting themselves motivated and moving forward. And Tommy explains it here in this book, and it is a simple, wonderful read, well written, and you will get so much out of this. So go and get this book. Tommy, again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us.
Thank you, Gary. Always a pleasure.
All right. Good night, sir. And I want to thank all of you out there very much for joining us here on this edition of The Express. We'll be back next week with another show. Until then, please remember Thursday night at 7, the show will repeat itself on diversitybroadcastnetwork.com. I've got some great news coming up about podcast networks I'm connecting myself with, other social media. As time moves forward, we will get it done. And please get in there, tell your friends to get in, try to listen to my shows, download them. I would appreciate that very, very, very much. Until next week, please, would you take care of yourselves and each other?
You've been listening to The Express with Gary Allen. Join us here every Tuesday night at 10 for more captivating talk with Gary Allen. See you next time on The Express.